Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Captivating Conversations. And I've got a captivating personality with me today. Her name is Lynne Clark. Hello, Karen.
Hi, Peter. Lovely to be here with you today.
Lovely to have you here today because this lady is extremely talented, more than this old bugger in Thailand, right? She really does her stuff well.
Oh.
But we're going to have a conversation, and I'm hoping that the people who watch this take notice of what Karen has to say. And I encourage you to reach out to her, and we'll provide the links where you can do that to her, because she is a very talented lady. She also is a lady who has a lot of compassion and understanding with people. So please don't be concerned in this day and age of uncertainty and skepticism. Don't fear reaching out to someone like Karen. Don't ever fear that, because she appreciates exactly that fear. All right, Karen.
Thank you, Peter. I do. You're right.
All right. Okay, Karen. So this, for the sake of the audience and for me, right, tell me what you really do and why do you do it?
Okay, well, what I really do is I used to think I was in the business of being a business coach.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found out that all my clients really want is to know how to overcome the fear or the challenge and get through the challenges that stop them from achieving what they actually would love to achieve in their business and in their lives. So one of my clients once said to me, I help them to turn fear into possibility. And I thought that was a great way of putting it.
Yeah, I love that line. Turn fear into possibility. Wow, good.
So I help people to understand, first of all, what it is they would love their life to be like if they didn't think it was impossible. So I ask people to do a deep dive and to really get in touch with what would I love my life to be like? What would I love to create? What would I love to be, do, have? And put aside for that, for a moment, to put aside their perceived limitations of and which stops us from really creating that big picture dream.
So what you're saying is you really dig deep with people to get clarity with them and for them about what's important to them. Is that right?
Absolutely, because most people spend more time planning a weekend away than they do thinking about what their life would be like if they could have that life that they love. So yeah, that's one of the first steps. So I teach people that you've got to have the destination first before you can take off on the journey. If you don't have a clear, specific, detailed destination, then you'll basically just drive around aimlessly.
And maybe they drive around aimlessly because of that fear they've got. Maybe.
Partly that. Yes, Peter, partly that, and partly because of really how we're taught by society, every one of us, as to how our results are created, because we're all taught to look outside of ourselves. We're taught that our outside circumstances and conditions are what limit us. So I teach people to understand that it all comes from inside of ourselves. It all comes from our thinking. Our limitations are not in the material world at all. None of them are.
Okay. From my simple perspective, could I assume that has something to do with our comfort zones?
Yes, Peter, absolutely. So that's right. Most of us get brought up to resist being uncomfortable. Okay. And one of the things I teach my clients is we have to be willing to be uncomfortable, because when we're uncomfortable and we've got a bit of fear showing up, what that is it's a message to us that we're looking for something more than the life that we know now. We're looking for something more than our comfort zone and our security blanket, and that we'll never, ever do anything else other than have a mediocre life in the life of the status quo, unless we're prepared to move out of that life into something else, something more, something better, something bigger. And you know what? There's not one of us probably who you've met or I've met or myself or any other coaches or people who are exceptional in their fields who have reached their full potential, who have reached their potential and their capacities. As humans, we're capable of so much. And we know this because we look at all the people who have changed history and did things that were impossible at the time, right?
Mm.
And we're no different. We're all humans. We're all made of the same stuff. And so in actual fact, there's not one of us that can't imagine something that we would love, that the mind that thinks that up doesn't know how to create it, doesn't know how to bring that to fruition.
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
Okay, so that's what you do, which we could talk for hours on, by the way. But tell me, more, as just as important, why do you do it? What's your driver? What drives Karen?
So there's a number of reasons. The main reason is that I do it because I discovered my why, my purpose. I did a whole lot of work on it many, many, many years ago before I became a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And my why, like my big job that I'm here to do on this earth, because I believe we've all got a purpose, something we're here to do, and it's much larger than our direct family or the things like women go through their lives bearing children and bringing up their family, and for them that's our purpose. Usually it's the most important thing to us. But I discovered that our big why, our big purpose is much bigger than that. It's something that we can never achieve. We're always working on it, and it's much bigger than ourselves and our immediate lives. And mine is freedom for humanity. So when I discovered that I could give people more freedom from fear, freedom and time and money freedom, freedom from feeling lack and doubt and not being good enough, and all of those things through my coaching, then I was like, oh my goodness, this is how I'm going to achieve or be working on my why. So my why, one of the things my dad gave me when I was a child was he told me I could do whatever I want. I think I mentioned that to you on another meeting, Peter. He said, when you grow up, Karen, you can do whatever you want, which was an amazing gift. But he also taught me to serve. So I used to go to work with him to his business, from about 9 years old, and he taught me to serve. He taught me the value of service to others. And so for me, that's part of my why, is to serve others and help people to change their lives through getting more freedom.
Good. By the way, I remember a brief conversation with you previously where you mentioned your dad did something else for you. He taught you how to ride a motorbike when you were 12.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Did. Yeah, he did. If there's a few older people listening to this, he taught me on an old Villiers 250, which most people won't even know what that is. And it was a trials bike, because my dad used to ride a trials bike with other people in the club. And, we used to go as a family to these places, and, we'd collect out in the country. And I learned to ride that bike when I was 12 in a paddock.
Wow. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
What's really interesting I want to share, Peter, is that then I got a motorbike. He told me, when you're old enough, and in New Zealand I'm from, in New Zealand we were allowed to get our motorbike license and our car license at 15. And so he said, wow, when you're old enough, you can get a motorbike. And so I got my license and I got a little motorbike. He helped me to get it. And then I was riding for my teens that was my form of transport. And then when I was about 20, I got sick of having that bad helmet hair stuff whenever I got somewhere. And so I got a car and gave up riding for many years. And then my father and my brother and me all took riding up again when I was in my 40s, so was my brother. And my dad knew that I would have lost my confidence, right? And so, because I said to him, I want to get a bike and ride as well. And so he said to me, I'll take you out somewhere. He'd started riding again. He said, I'll take you out somewhere and, help you to get your confidence back. I'll never forget this, because here it was his motorcycle, and it was quite tall. I'm so short. I'm only 5'2", just. And all these motorcycles were way too tall for me. So I was sort of balanced on this motorcycle and my tippy toes. And I was getting ready and I was hesitating to take off. And because, he wrote it for me and I drove the car, and then we swapped when we got to this open area that I could practice. And I'm like,
turned fear into possibility, right?
and I'm hesitating. And he's like, come on, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm scared I'm going to fall. I'm scared I'm going to drop it. That's the language we use, drop the bike. And he said, Karen, it's all in your head.
He was a smart cookie, your dad.
Very. And that was, he's still alive, thankfully. And that was like, okay, I'll prove to him it's not, And so I took off. And of course, on a motorcycle, as soon as you're moving, it's very much easier, and all the fear pretty much dissipates. It's the same as riding a push bike.
And you know what? That's probably exactly what your dad planned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for sharing what you do and why you do. And by the way, for those watching, I forgot to say this, Karen is based in Brisbane in Australia.
And the Gold Coast, Peter.
And the Gold Coast. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Which is close to Brisbane. Brisbane is the, I guess, closest large city, and where the closest big airport is.
Okay, good. Now, can I share what I do and why I do it?
Oh, can I please ask you what you do, Peter? Yeah, so what do you do, Peter, and why do you do it? I'd like to know.
I could put a hat on, which I'm not going to do just yet. Let me do it this way. I work with solopreneurs. And for those who aren't sure what I'm talking about with that, they are people, they're one man or one lady shows. They may have a husband or a wife involved. They may have some support, some VAs, etc. But basically they're a one person business. I've been in the corporate area. I don't want to get back there. Enough's enough for me, right? And I understand these people. I understand the challenges. And because I've done that for a long time myself. So I work with solopreneurs, but not any solopreneur. They are normally people who are online, okay, and they are providing a valuable service to somebody. Okay, for example, a life coach. And what I do is help people like that who are really good at what they do and who are compassionate and passionate about what they do, but they feel uncomfortable about selling their stuff, right? Because they think this is sleazy and salesy. Ooh, don't feel like that. Yeah. So I show them how to have conversations with potential clients, which very similar to what you do, Karen, in terms of getting people clarity about what's important to them without trying to sell their stuff, but showing that they understand them, that they are interested in them, that they are authentic, that they're compassionate, that they have empathy, okay? All those features, which people can then resonate with. If they resonate, then they can respect you. If they respect you, they'll be inspired by you, which we've been taught by Michael Griffiths, right? Which is true. That's exactly what it is, right? So that's what I do. And I do it with a passion.
That's so important, Peter, because as you say, I personally know many, many coaches and people who work in that realm of helping others to work through their fears and their challenges. And that's their problem, is they love helping other people and serving and doing all of that. And yet, like you say, some people even have trouble charging, mentioning a price. They're fine when they start doing it in the beginning for a very low fee or even for free. But as soon as it's got to the point where they actually have to value themselves and start charging a reasonable amount, value for value, they find it difficult. So what you do is very, very helpful.
Well, the vast majority of what I do has got nothing to do with sales. It's got everything to do with personal and professional development. And it's about your self-worth and your belief in yourself. And if you really are good at what you do, show me how you do it. And let's see how good you really are. Here I am. Help me out, right? And then I want you to sell me how good you are, because if you can sell me how good you are, I can help you. Okay? And I don't want you to sell me your services. I want you to sell me you as a person.
Yeah.
Because people buy people before they buy any business things. So you've got to be able to relate and resonate with them, which means you've got to be ordinary. In other words, so people can see that you understand and appreciate them.
Yeah.
And you've got to be extraordinary because people can see that you've been there, but you've overcome that. So you've got to put both in there. Does that make? So then, I mean, let's stop on there because I could go all day and this is my passion. So that's what I do. Why do I do it? I am blessed, Karen. I really am blessed because I have a private client family that are family to me. They really are family to me. And I'm accountable to them as well as them being accountable to their client. And the reason why they are important to me is because I use the investment in my coaching and mentoring fees to educate the children in my village.
Yeah.
Okay. All I have to do for my why is to look out the window because here in a remote little village in far northeastern Thailand, there's no such thing as an annual income. They have maybe one rice crop a year, right? And the amount in Aussie dollars would be, they'd be lucky if they got $3,000, okay, in 1 year, not in 1 week or not month, 1 year, right?
Wow.
So it means they're living in a constant cycle of debt. And what they used to do is take their kids out of school when they're 10 or 11 or 12 to go and work in the rice fields because they couldn't afford to pay anybody else, right? And everyone got tied up in a vicious cycle of poverty. So what I've done, and that's why I'm blessed, is that the investment in my coaching services I used to educate the kids in this school and build libraries for the school and pay the staff at the school. I do all of that, right? And it might sound really simple, but I am so proud of the fact in the last 9 years, not one child has left school before they finished high school. And that for this part of the world is extraordinary. It might not sound that much because it's pretty ordinary in Australia, right? But here it's not. Okay.
Yeah, I understand.
And I've also got three, not one, not two, but three who are university graduates, right? One's a teacher, one's a lawyer, and one's a nurse, okay?
Wow.
And I mean, people in my village didn't even know what a university was, right? So, I mean, that's pretty special. That's why I'm blessed. Does that make sense?
You are. I can imagine they must love you, Peter. You must be like the village caretaker and grandfather or father. Sorry, not meaning to be rude.
No, that's right. I mean, it's better than being a village idiot. They refer to me as Tar.
Yeah.
Tar is the village grandpa, okay?
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what they are.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Tar Peter. And really, Karen, that's priceless. You can't put a value on that. How can you do that? And that's why, even though I don't need to be online, but I'm 76 years of age and I want to be because I love what I do.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. If I stop, I'll be really personal here just for a moment because I'm happy to share this. My father was my hero, okay? He was a tough old ram, but he was my hero. And when he retired at 65, he was the smartest person I'd ever met in my life. But by the time he was 70, right, he had lost the ability to communicate. It was Alzheimer's. And that's a fear inside of me. I don't know whether it's hereditary, whether it's not, I don't know. But that's why I want to keep using this for as long as I can, right? And so, and I go out of my way to get myself outside my comfort zone to learn what's going on in the latest and the greatest within my field in order to challenge myself all the time, as well as to provide a more memorable experience for my clients. That's what I'm all about. My father memory in there drives that.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's there, but your actual real driving force, like you say, is the village and the children and what you do there. Just absolutely wonderful, wonderful work that you're giving.
Thank you.
Wonderful gift that you're giving them. Yeah,
Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Can I ask you another question?
Mm-hmm.
Karen, what got you started in the business?
So, Peter, I guess for 25 years, or for more than 30 years, I was starting and running mostly traditional kind of businesses. And one I had for 25 years in the automotive industry. And it was a traditional service and retail business.
Right.
And it was a big monkey around my neck, to be honest. We had staff, we had massive overheads, we had a head lease with subtenants as well. And if our building was not full or they didn't pay their rent, we still had to pay ours. And before I got out of it, I had to make $500,000 just to pay the outgoings. Okay. And so it was a lot of stress. And before I got out of it, I got out of that business in 2010. And before I got out of it, I was very interested in upskilling myself. So I did a lot of courses in property and business investment, and personal development was always included in all of them. Mm-hmm. So I did it with some of the top entrepreneurs and business futurists, and I became a member of the Entrepreneurs Institute in early 2000. And I attended a lot of these, as I say, boot camps or seminars or workshops, and there was always a portion of the mindset and the transformation work. And probably the last one I did before I became a coach was one where we learned the law of non-resistance, and I was in a really difficult time at that point, and I had an aha moment. But we also did things like break the piece of timber with our hand. Okay. Our mindset, really, because I've done it since then as well in another training, and I do notice that it really depends on our mindset of getting our hand through that piece of timber. And the other one we did was walking into the arrow point of the arrow in the soft part of our neck and breaking it as we step forward into it. So it's in the soft part of our neck. Have you seen that?
No, I've seen people walking on coals like with Tony Robbins. Right. But an arrow in here, ooh, you. Yeah,
so the point goes here, and we put the end of the shaft against a pillar or something solid, and then we're coached to step forward into it. And if we do it with conviction and confidence, the arrow will bend and we will break the shaft. But if we hesitate and start and then stop or do it without enough force and conviction, the arrow will pierce us and kill us. So ooh. I did a lot, and I did break the arrow, by the way, obviously, because I'm still here. So I did a lot of work like that, and I was always so fascinated with the mindset and transformation part of these programs that for 10 years I had a vision that I wanted to bring this kind of education to people to help them grow and really evolve. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I had this dream that I was going to create a facility or a training facility of some type to do that. And then in 2015, I was actually watching a recommendation for the Life Mastery Institute and Mary Morrissey, who's my master coach, and by Roger Hamilton, who's got who started the Entrepreneurs Institute that I said I was a member of. And I saw that, and I started a course or program with Mary Morrissey, and we ended up going to a long weekend in LA, which was called Dream Builder Live. And there I was so impressed with her work and what she does. And the offer was there for us to learn to coach. And I just went, this is it. This is how I'm going to bring this information to people. This is how I'm going to teach people mindset and transformation to change their results.
Yeah, Karen, it must be incredibly fulfilling for you to be able to take people to achieve things that they themselves never thought possible. Just to think about that, is an incredible, not just fulfillment for you, but a memorable experience for them as well. So, I mean...
And you know that, Peter, because you do it too, right?
Yeah, but I don't take all the risk of putting an arrow in my throat.
Well, I don't get people to do that either, to be honest. Yeah. However, some of my clients, for example, one of my clients, she has done the hot coal walking with Tony Robbins, right. And she's a client of mine and did it previous to coming to me. And it is so rewarding because this, for me, actually, I feel very proud that this woman felt me worthy of, who had already done the hot coal walking. And in actual fact, another woman who has used her mindset to change her life, because 12 years ago or more, she was told she would never walk again. Never walked. She had an accident and she was told she would never walk. And she was in a wheelchair for, I think it was 8 years. And this is way before I met her. And then she told me, I decided that I was going to walk. And just so she started to use her mindset to walk, and what got through the, like you say, the fear and all of those things. And she gradually got better and better, got a frame, and then she got crutches. And then she said she was driving around to places, she'd started to walk again, and she realized she always had her crutches in the car. And she said to herself, I'm not going to bring them anymore. I don't need my crutches anymore. And so to be working with someone like that is just such a privilege and an honor. And for me, it is. It's the reason I do it is because I know with this training that I teach things that people don't learn in the traditional kind of university, business college, business consulting, all of that, the traditional education. People do not learn this work. And so I do it because I absolutely love being able to open people's eyes to a different perspective and a different way of thinking about how they can achieve a life they love, and that they can achieve a life they love regardless of any perceived limitations, and give people that gift.
Karen, you know what? We are kindred spirits, even though we're in completely different fields.
Yeah. So
this conversation is incredible for me, okay? Because the reason I started in business was very similar to you. I mean, I spent 16 wonderful years as a teacher in New South Wales in Australia, and I loved it. I loved teaching kids. I really did. And by the way, I'm still teaching when you think of it, right?
Yeah.
But the promotional system put me in a situation where I was getting less and less contact with the kids, and it was more administration, that sort of stuff. So I decided to leave. And that was a big decision to make, which was not popular in my family, by the way. I was in a previous marriage I had in Australia. Right? But I went into sales and marketing 36 years ago, and I've been there ever since. And all I've actually done is taken the skills from teaching, which is communication skills, and combine them with some of the values and things that I was taught, especially by my father, who was a tough old character, but he actually taught me right from wrong. And even though I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I'm still going to make more, I guess, I've learnt slowly over the years what they're all about. And so I'm in a situation now to be able to provide what I would regard as some homemade wisdom, so to speak, all right, in order to survive in this world as a little business. And that's really what got me started in this business. And I went online, Karen, I don't know, 2004, okay? And I combined the skills of teaching with the skills of sales and marketing, and it was a logical thing to go into the coaching arena, because that's exactly what that does for me, right?
Yes.
And that's what I've been doing ever since.
Sounds very, very valuable, Peter. I totally get that. You've combined those very important parts of growing a business, and probably many people haven't got that experience. And that's the thing. you're teaching and you've done it yourself. You've walked the talk. You know what you're talking about. And so that's another thing I find really encouraging. If I wanted to come to someone, I would want to come to you because of your experience and your expertise and skill in those areas of actually having done it yourself.
Yeah, and I've made more mistakes than anybody else, to be quite frank. I'm not perfect. I
hope you keep making them, Peter, because while you're making mistakes, or shall we say failing at some things, which we call feedback in my coaching,
good point.
Not
good
failure.
Point.
If you're not making mistakes, then you're not trying anything new and you're not learning.
Yeah, not getting out of my comfort zone, right?
Absolutely.
And I push myself to do that.
Yeah.
And you and I both know this, and for those listening, maybe you can relate to this as well. But one of the biggest fears people have is the word change.
Yeah.
And even though they come to me or come to people like you, Karen, wanting transformation, the very fact they have to handle change is one of the biggest challenges I face with them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because it's the unknown, it's the uncertainty.
Yes.
I'm not sure about this, Peter, all that, right? Anyway.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Tell me. Thank you for that. What about you in terms of the ideal client that Karen Clark would look for? If I was talking to someone, who would it be?
Well, Peter, yes, I do have an ideal client, and recently I looked at that and changed a little bit and really niched my market. And so my niche market, my ideal client who I would attract if I could, I would attract. However, of course, as you know, with our ideal client, we don't say no to other people who would like to work with us. My ideal client is a woman in a male-dominated industry.
Right.
Because guess what? A woman entrepreneur, owner, solopreneur. I do not work in the corporate world. I do not wish to work with corporates. I'm like you, Peter, where I work with small to medium-sized business owners. So my ideal client is an SME, small to medium-sized business owner, who's a woman who works who's in a male-dominated industry. Because I've been in male-dominated industries all my life.
Yeah, like the automotive industry, right?
Yeah, I've been an entrepreneur, business owner. I've started all my own businesses, and they've all been, apart from one, which was in the beauty industry in the very beginning, that all my other businesses have been in male-dominated industries.
Fantastic. Well, it's interesting because...
And what about you, Peter? Who's your ideal client? Sorry.
Okay. Well, mine is definitely a solopreneur. Not small business, but definitely a solopreneur. Okay? That's one stipulation. Secondly, they're online. Okay? They're online. Thirdly, they are people who, as I alluded to earlier, provide a really good service. Fourthly, they are not new. They've actually been online. They've had their butt kicked a few times. They've realised the challenges of running an entrepreneurial business, and they've had their income go up and down and up and down. So they understand the challenges of being in business from the point of reality. Okay? This is not textbook university stuff.
Yeah.
Right? This is the real world we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What I do is I work with them to create a successful business, building on their self-worth and their values. And I do it by showing them how they can have a consistent and reliable income rather than a roller coaster income. Okay, I show them how to do that. And once they've got a consistent an income that is consistent and gradually growing, and by the way, I'll put a caveat there. If someone comes to me wanting to earn 7 figures, I'm the wrong person to talk to. I've never earned 7 figures online in my life. And I'm saying this publicly, okay? I can get you to 6 figures. I can get you to 10,000 or whatever it is a month. I don't have any problem with that. But if you want to earn $1 million a month, you're talking to the wrong person. I can't do that. And you know what? And I'd be happy to share with other people who can. But I want to put that caveat in there because there are so many people, and you know this, Karen, right now, especially on social media, there seems to be more coaches than clients, to be quite frank with you, right? And
Yes.
there's a lot of people who are offering these 7-figure business opportunities. I'm just saying, be careful. I caution you, be careful. Do your homework on these people. Make sure that they are actually doing what they are saying they're doing. I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to be pragmatic, because a lot of my clients have come from people who provide a service they didn't deliver on. So they've been good for my business. But, you know, I just need to be honest about that. All right. So my ideal client, they could be a male or a female. I mean, I've got a 60-40 split right now, female to male. Okay. And they're probably in the age group. And I don't believe demographics is a big issue, to be quite frank with you. But as it stands, they're in the age group between 40 and 60. Okay. They provide a service, as I mentioned before, but more important than anything else, they are emotional about what they do. Because if they're not emotional about what they do, then I really can't help them. I want them to be compassionate. I want them to be able to take people on an emotional journey with them. I do not want them to have what people euphemistically refer to as a sales funnel. A sales funnel focuses only on the seller. I want them to build a memorable customer journey experience with everyone they come in contact with. Because if you do that, you can't fail. If you create memorable experiences for everybody you deal with, you either get a new client or you get an advocate.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of people I work with, okay? And it's not rocket science, and I'm not brilliant at what I do, but I love what I do with a passion, and I love the idea of helping people just like you. Make sense?
Yeah, that's great, Peter. And, you know, that we have that in common too, and that talking about working with entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. I work with a lot of solopreneurs too, although, like I said, you work with small business owners as well. And, you know, it's a very different, even though we talk about the challenges that our clients have, you know, what I've noticed is that it's a very different mindset, a very different type of person who has the courage. Yes. Because there has to be some courage, even though we have our fears, there has to be some courage to actually be a business person, be a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, or a business owner, because it's a very, very different mindset to working for a wage or a salary. Absolutely. Very, very different.
Absolutely.
And as you say, it brings with it the roller coaster of, in most cases for most people, it brings with it the roller coaster of income, of challenges that come up, that really the buck stops with the solopreneur, the entrepreneur, or the business owner.
It does. And it's interesting you mentioned the word courage, Karen, because to me, when people invest with someone like Karen, okay, there's 3 levels of the investment they make. The first one is courage. They've got to actually accept the fact that they need to have a mindset prepared to make the changes to get the transformation you can give them. Yes. If they don't have the courage, you can't do anything with them. You can't teach people courage.
And like you said, we have to be willing to be uncomfortable.
Correct.
And get out of our comfort zone, which takes courage.
Correct. The second thing is time. People need to commit to the time to allow the Karens of this world to take them on that transformational journey. Plus time in terms of expectations. Don't expect Karen to create the transformation for you by next Friday, because that's impossible. Okay.
And I imagine the same applies to you, Peter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to people who are coaching out there or working with coaches. Okay. Same thing. And the third level of the investment, of course, is the investment you're making in terms of money. But the first 2, the client controls. And if they haven't got that right, then the investment requirement should never even be discussed, because it doesn't matter. Okay? If I'm working with Karen and you aren't committed to the ability of stepping outside your comfort zone, it doesn't matter what I'm going to ask you to pay in terms for my thing, it doesn't matter. Because you shouldn't do it because it's not going to work. And I'll tell you that. And you do the same thing with your client, because the most important thing is get to the truth with people, right? So,
yeah, and also we know, sorry to interrupt you.
No, go.
Also, we know that actually the money, the investment, that may be something that people resist making that commitment to is actually not the thing that stops us. Because once we make the decision and the commitment that we're going to do something, we want to do it, actually there will be a way that shows up. The how will show up. And often people think that that is a limitation, when in fact, once again, it's in our head.
Correct. And if people desperately want the change,
the how will show up.
The how will definitely show up. Absolutely. So that's my ideal client. I've got one last question. Can we share that? You got enough time for that?
Yes.
Because I'm truly enjoying what you're sharing. Thank you, Karen. All right. Tell me, earlier you mentioned, what was the word? Create more freedom for people, right? That's one of the things that drives you, okay? Tell me, can you encapsulate what are the outcomes you provide for your ideal client?
So thank you, Peter. That's a really good question. And what I would say is the outcomes are many. Probably the most important outcome with most of my clients is that they actually become a different person. Because when you have this life that you decide that you want, which you don't have right now, but this would be the life that I love, the reward is not achieving that dream. The biggest reward is becoming the person living in that dream.
Yes.
Living that dream life. Because we change. Because if we could have that life the way we are when they first start working with me, they would already have it. So the biggest reward for people who work with me is actually growing and learning and becoming that person living that life that they love.
Awesome.
That's a simple answer to your question.
Yeah, and it's very powerful. And I think
so they overcome fear and they overcome doubt and they learn more confidence and they do all those things. But in short, the answer is, in short, that they become that person living that dream life, that life they love.
Excellent. Well done.
And
thank you.
Peter, what are the outcomes? Tell me, what are the outcomes your clients achieve by working with you?
It's, in a way, it's growing into the person to handle where they want to go. But to be specific, a level of self-worth, right, is important. A level of confidence in the fact that they can market themselves, not just provide their skills and expertise. They get fulfillment in what they're doing. They're no longer petrified by the very sound of the word sales, right? Because that's what really upsets most of the people who come to me, right? And I guess the most important thing of all is the outcome they really get is, I alluded to this earlier, is being able to give people memorable experiences. But Karen, memorable experiences don't necessarily mean joyful and happiness, right? It can be very challenging because the memorable experiences are all about getting to the truth of what the person's all about. And that truth could be painful. And sometimes you have to work with the client to dig as deep as you can so they can finally share with themselves, maybe for the first time, my goodness, that's what the problem is, right? Because if I don't find that problem, then the idea of helping them market their services is gone. I can't do it until I find this bit out. Does that make sense? And, and I want to teach them to do the same thing with their clients, because if you do that, you're having a conversation with people that is genuine, authentic, it's transparent, and at the same time, you need to show that you are vulnerable. Because if you are vulnerable, people can see that you're approachable, that they can resonate with you, and they feel comfortable in sharing back because you've shared with them what mistakes you've made, so they can have a real conversation with you. So the outcome for people that I work with is confidence, self-worth, and more importantly, they enjoy holding conversations with potential clients, whereas before they were scared about the whole thing.
Yeah, that is very powerful, Peter, and really you are a coach as well, of course, as you say. And I totally agree with you. I hope I haven't given the impression that everything in my life has just worked out and I've been successful, because in fact I've experienced many, many setbacks and reinvented myself, as they say, many times over. I've had a lot of challenges through my life, and I believe that, you know, there are things that are sent to us that we don't ask for, we wouldn't have asked for, and we wouldn't wish it on probably our worst enemy, let alone our loved ones. However, there's always a gift in every single situation that is given to us. And if we can find the gift, even if it's simply a lesson, something our soul, you know, was needing to learn, or then it hasn't been wasted. It's actually helped us to grow.
Actually, Karen, that raises another point when you think of it, because people have got to realise that in the first place.
Yes. Yes.
So part of our role in coaching is to do that, which is all part of getting to the truth when you think about it. Okay. But there's so many elements involved in being honest with people and getting them to be honest with themselves. And to me, the most fulfilling thing is for me to be able to get people to empower others to make the best decisions for themselves. Yes. If they make the best decisions for themselves, then they own the decision, rather than me saying, this is what you should do, and imposing on them or trying to persuade them or trying to convince them, right? Which is traditional sales techniques. Okay. Yeah, I don't believe in that.
I agree with you too, Peter. And it is also a common coaching technique. We call it directive coaching. And I just want you to know that I don't do that. What I do is called evocative coaching. And so we get people, we ask questions and help people to actually come up with the answers themselves.
And take them on a journey with you, right?
Yeah.
Karen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. And we could go on for hours, but we think we better call it quits because we've been going too long as it is. Yeah. But before we finish, if people want to get in contact with you, what can they do? And I'll put this on the screen as well for those who are watching. Okay. So what can they do?
So they can contact me on my LinkedIn profile, and that's probably one of the easiest ways, because my name is Karen. My middle name is Lynne, spelled L-Y-N-N-E, and my surname is Clark without an E. But there aren't many Karen Lynne Clarks on LinkedIn, but they won't find me unless they put Karen Lynne Clark in there. Okay. So that's one way, and you'll put it up, won't you? And then my business name is clarkashiansandco.com. And so they can pop onto my website, clarkashiansandco.com. And there is a little button there to say, do you have a question? Have a virtual coffee with me. And so they can book a time that works for them and me, both of us, to have a little 15-minute catch up, which quite often goes a bit longer, but that's okay.
Excellent. Clarkashians.com, not .au, just .com.
No, clarkashiansandco.com, yes, not .au. I am international.
Okay. What about mine's very simple. It's peterbeckenham.com.
Fantastic.
Okay? And you go there and mine is probably the ugliest website you've ever seen in your life. And I'm not going to change it, to be quite frank with you, because it works.
But Peter, you're on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Okay.
So Peter Beckenham on LinkedIn?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'm the only Peter Beckenham in Thailand.
So you just put Peter Beckenham Thailand and it'll bring you up.
It should.
Yeah.
It should.
That's
All
brilliant. Right. I've really enjoyed having this conversation with you too, Peter, and getting to know you better. It's been
Thank you. I enjoyed it too. And thank you for being part of my captivating conversation series. It's been an honor to talk with you.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you.